welcome to another episode of Focus On with myself, Fifi Peters, coming to you from the 16th U.S Africa Business Summit happening in Dallas, Texas. In today's episode, we are looking at doing business in Africa, and we are having this conversation with a diversified group, the Jean Ball Group. And I am joined right now by the chairman, Mr. Jean Ball himself. So thanks so much for your time. Perhaps by way of introduction, and just an understanding, sir, I do understand that you have a lot of business interests across a few sectors on the continent.
Yes.
Just give us that color, please.
Yeah, the background to our company is that we had one of the biggest discoveries in history in Labrador of nickel. And today, a lot of the cars, a large proportion of the cars that are running around with electricity, that nickel comes from Voisey's Bay in Labrador, which we discovered.
All right.
We also restarted the economy of Sierra Leone after the war with two mines, aluminium mine and a titanium mine. Those mines are still in production today, and it's had a huge impact on the country in terms of employment. We went from 0 to 2,000 employees in 6 months when we rebuilt that mine, and 98% of those were Sierra Leoneans. In addition, we mine diamonds offshore Namibia at depths of 0 to 120 meters. Those are some of the very best diamonds in the world, 96 to 98% gem diamonds, and using large ships and crawlers which go along the seafloor. It's quite shallow, in fact, from 0 to 120 meters. It's not deep sea mining. In addition, perhaps getting away from mining for a second, in South Africa, we are the largest single shareholder of a company called Omnican, which has the largest plantation of sugarcane in Mauritius. We produce brown sugar, white sugar, ethanol, and then we burn the husk of the sugarcane, and we produce electricity.
Sure.
And
Stable power.
but yes, that's correct. So we produce about a third of Mauritius's electricity. So again, that's very impactful on the country and its people, and for the well-being of its people. And we also have recently invested in Angola,
Right.
and where we have two very important diamond projects. And we think that the future of diamonds is in Angola, and so we are investing heavily in Angola.
I wonder how the Botswana delegation, how happy they will be to hear you say that, because of course they believe that the future of the industry remains in their country. But notwithstanding, just given your vast business interests in various sectors, quite widespread across the continent, the purpose of the summit is ultimately to strengthen existing partnerships between US and African companies, but also invite new ones. And for those who have been looking at the reviews of what doing business in Africa has been like, they have been looking at the pros in terms of the opportunity, the size of the market, the demographics of the people, but also the cons in terms of perhaps the risk that is perceived to be a lot higher. What would your assessment of the risk landscape and the business landscape in Africa be, and areas of improvement in your view?
Well, just like I said about diamonds in Angola, Africa's the future.
Sure.
It's the future because it won't be long before we have 1 billion people plus in Africa, and the majority of those are under 35. And on the other hand, we have a huge diaspora of Africans like me who have a very close link with Africa, with America, with America, of Africans who have links with America. And so, for instance, in Texas, we have more Africans living here, who've moved here, than any other part of the country.
I found that so interesting.
So it's very Texan-centric.
Sure.
The fact that we Africans all love Texas, and so many of us are here. But getting back to a future, yeah, Africa is definitely a future. You look at Nigeria, their populations, it's fast approaching what America's population is. It's moving very, very fast. So I don't think that anyone can ignore Africa now or in the future.
Right. An important point that a lot of Africans are putting forward right now is the opportunity of the 1 billion plus market,
Yes.
the opportunity of the 3.4 billion US dollar market combined under
Yes.
the AFCFTA, the Free Trade Area deal. So the AFCFTA conversation is happening, as well as conversations around renewal of the Africa Growth Opportunity Act. If we start with the AFCFTA, is that a game changer, you think, for the optimistic view that you have on Africa?
Definitely, and in fact, I can tell you that I supported Mauritius as a prime mover of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, the original one. And at the time, we were doing it because Mauritius wanted to export textiles to America, and the mainland was not involved. But once, and we got it done quite quickly by lobbying here in America, but once that came out, the exports from Africa went from a few hundred million to billions.
Sure.
Huge impact. So I think we definitely need to renew the lobby to renew AGOA in 25 for what I call a super AGOA, because
Which looks like what?
America cannot afford to ignore Africa.
Right.
They cannot afford to ignore Africa.
Super AGOA. What does that look like?
Sorry?
A super AGOA.
Well, I think just a lot more trade and a lot more investment from America. For instance, right now, DFC, which is the American government, have committed to putting close to, I think the number is somewhere around 600 million for the Lobito Railway, which goes from Kolwezi in Congo through Zambia and to Lobito. And the idea is that all the roads that are so clogged up with copper, which we need for our computers and,
Sure.
and for
Cell
our
phones.
critical metals.
Sure.
You go to the Congo-Zambian border, there are tens of kilometers of trucks with copper on them, which are blocked because there are too many trucks. We've got to have a railway. And the American government has stepped in and said, okay, we'll finance this railway. It's going to make a huge difference to Africa, and it's also going to make a huge difference to inter-Africa trade. What we in Africa are most concerned about is that we're exporting everything, but we're not doing business with our neighbors, which is quite strange.
Sure.
And so we need to have a type of common market for Africa where we all trade with each other. And I think Mauritius has been a really good example of how it trades between Africa and the rest of the world. So I think I've answered the question.
No, you have, and I suppose reflecting on a conversation that I was having with your colleague at the Corporate Council of Africa, in her conversations around increasing the level of trade between American companies in Africa and also trade within the continent. One thing that came up was the red tape, right? And the regulatory hurdles that sometimes do inhibit a lot more business activity. She was saying she was speaking with a lot of policymakers who were saying that they're keen to do something about it. But what is your assessment of the red tape as it does pertain to the Jean Ball group and how you've been able to navigate and maneuver around it?
I think that there are certain countries that are easier than others.
Sure.
West Africa in particular is going through a very difficult time right now. And particularly Mali, Burkina Faso, etc. They are going through a difficult time. But the rest of Africa is very much better organized than it's been for a long time. I know Sudan's a problem, but the rest of Africa is much better organized than it's ever been. And so the other thing that's happening is that there have been huge gas discoveries offshore Mozambique.
Sure.
Huge oil discoveries in Namibia. So, and then I think hopefully in due course we'll see the Inga Dam in Congo being sorted out. But now you're getting an Africa which will have huge energy, and in fact exporting energy, and also going downstream. So instead of just digging up raw material and shipping it, we'll be able to go downstream. I think Morocco is a great example of what can be done. You know, they started off doing spare parts for cars, and now they're making cars, and now they're making parts for Airbus and Boeing. And I mean, it's a great example. They use the raw material and then go downstream, and that's what we all want to do in Africa.
Sure.
We don't want to just send it to Europe and that's it. We want to send finished product to Europe.
For sure, our beneficiation. I mean, this is a conversation that
Yes.
continues to go on because of its importance. But Jean, if you, go back to a statement that you mentioned about Africa is the future, and if we operate under that a statement, and if there was one or two things that you could share with policymakers in Africa about how a lot more people could have such an optimistic and bullish view on Africa, what they would need to change, if anything at all, to ensure that a lot more people are as upbeat about the future of Africa, what would those one or two things be?
Well, I think people talk a lot about artificial intelligence.
Oh, right.
But you know, there's also human intelligence. You have all these bright young people in Africa, and they're all. It's an incredible source of human capital, if you want to call it that, of human intelligence, I prefer, who we can train up and who will carry the future. And with that, you need to keep the bridge with America too, because there are lots of institutions, particularly in the education and health departments, where America is much more advanced, where they could set up subsidiaries in Africa to train up young people. So I would say let's train up the young people.
All right. So take advantage of the artificial intelligence, but make sure that it's married with the human intelligence that is vast, spread across the continent, particularly the huge number of young people that you made reference to, average age being under the age of 35. So thanks so much for sharing your insights with us, telling the story, of course, of the Jean Ball Group and the optimistic outlook on the future of the African continent. That wraps up our conversation on this week's episode of A Focus On. Thanks to yourselves for watching as always. We'll do it again soon. Goodbye.